So now we're going to talk about blend modes. Blend modes can give you some really interesting effects. I brought over to my timeline the clouds, and I have this Monterey text with black and Monterey with alpha gradient. If I bring in Monterey with black, we see here that there's no alpha. There's white on black. Well, next week we're going to talk about chroma key and luma key, and that's one way you can cut out the black. This is another way. If I go into my effects control window and open up my opacity, which normally would dissolve things in and out, I have blend mode. So that's the normal blend mode. And if I go down to here to something like lighten, what it does is anything that is light in the file will come through and anything that is dark will disappear. So let's go over here to Monterey with alpha. Okay, so that has an alpha with it, and we see the band at the bottom, which is pretty much almost opaque with a normal setting. But if I go into lighten, we see here what it does. Anything that is light in a particular cutoff layer will see through. If I want darken, the darker part will show through and the white will not show through. Okay, if I hit screen, we see here that the lights show through, but also the blacks are semi-transparent, which is a nice effect. Another one that's very useful is overlay. So all of these interact differently and blend differently with the layer underneath it. So just try to experiment with some of these, like soft light, hard light, and so they give you all different kinds of blending effects. And this background called Orange Ovals was made with blend effects. So there are multiple layers that overlaid each other. So over here I have the clouds on top of the ovals, and if I bring down the opacity, you could see the orange underneath it. But I'm going to bring that back up, and I'm going to choose a different kind of blend mode, such as lighten, and in this case we can predict that it'll be semi-transparent and that the lighter parts of the signal, being the clouds, will be opaque and the darker areas will be transparent. You could also add a color correct to that to enhance that mode. But let's see if I try something else such as screen, it's slightly different. Or if I go into overlay, it creates a different kind of effect. And if I go into soft light, it looks like this, and hard light. So those are some of the ones that I find most interesting when you're blending. You could also, for instance, bring in something like a hard light and bring down the transparency a little bit, and it gives you a slightly different effect.